Job chapter 30, verse 30. My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat. The patriarch Job described his skin to be black. The word black, used in this text, is Hebrew shacher, Strong's number 7835, defined as to be dim or dark, in color, or to be black. Job's skin was black. Some people try to dismiss this by claiming that whenever the Hebrews were in mourning, they covered themselves in ashes, which is true, but then they argue that Job covered himself in ashes, and as a result his skin turned black. This cannot be true because when ash is applied on the skin, it does not turn the skin black but rather white. So, it was not because Job covered himself in ashes that he said his skin was black, but rather because Job was a person of color. Lamentations chapter 5, verse 10. Our skin was black like an oven, because of the terrible famine. The Israelites always described their skin color to be black. They got even darker after spending some time in the sun, or due to disasters such as famine and pestilences. If the Hebrews had white skin, and were out in the sun, their skin would not go from white or light to black like an oven due to famine or prolonged exposure to sunlight. This is only true for people of color. The picture you're looking at right now, is of a typical stone oven that would have been used by the Hebrews, at the time that Jeremiah wrote the verse we just read. You can clearly see how dark the inside of the oven is. It gives you an idea of how the Israelites looked, because only Negroes can describe themselves in such a manner. White people do not turn black when they get sick or suffer malnutrition. In fact, it is quite the opposite as they become pale. Only people of color get darker when they get sick or suffer malnutrition. It is a well-known fact that white people turn red when they are exposed to the sun for a long time, as they develop sunburns. Lamentations chapter 4, verse 2 and 7-8. The precious sons of Zion, comparable to fine gold, how are they esteemed as earthen pitchers, the work of the hands of the potter. Her Nazarites were purer than snow, they were whiter than milk, they were more ruddy in body than rubies, their polishing was of sapphire, their visage is blacker than a coal, they are not known in the streets, their skin cleaveth to their bones, it is withered, it is become like a stick. The word ruddy in Hebrew is Adam, Strong's number 119, defined as to show blood, in the face, flush or turn rosy, to be, dyed, made, red, ruddy. Keeping Lamentations chapter 4, verse 7, in context, the reference to being whiter than milk is a reference to the Nazarites' moral character and not skin color. That is why Jeremiah gets more specific by mentioning the fact that the Israelites were more ruddy in body than rubies. Hence, making a clear difference between whiter than milk and more ruddy in body than rubies. The former is talking about an Israelite's character and the later is about skin color. At this point, we must conclude that the Hebrews were a very deep, dark red people because no one is bright red. The word visage used in Lamentations chapter 4, verse 8, refers to a person's appearance, Strong's number 8389. It is defined as, a person's face, with reference to the form of the features. Here the Israelites are described as having their appearance blacker than a coal. By mentioning coal, Jeremiah is giving us something visual to reference, hence ruling out any possibility of him referring to their demeanor or emotional state. The Hebrew word black, as used here, is shashak, Strong's number 2821, and it is defined as to be or grow dark. Jeremiah is telling us here that the children of Israel were black people, and when they were in affliction, their skin color became darker than coal. If the children of Israel were any other people apart from black people, Jeremiah would have never described their appearance to be darker than a coal. So in context, the Israelites turned from being ruddy looking to being darker than a coal, because of the calamities they were going through at the time. Such an occurrence can only happen to black people as is evident all throughout sub-Saharan Africa. Song of Songs chapter 1, verse 5-6. I am black, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Look not upon me, because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me, my mother's children were angry with me, they made me the keeper of the vineyards, but mine own vineyard have I not kept. Here we have Solomon's lover, telling us twice that she is black. The word black, as used in the previous text, is Hebrew shachor, Strong's number 7838, defined as properly, dusky, but also absolutely jetty black. The Shulamite woman is telling us that she is a black woman, and that her skin is very dark due to prolonged exposure to the sun. She even goes as far as comparing her own skin to the tents of Kedar, the curtains of Solomon. This is consistent with how the Hebrews described their appearance, all throughout Scripture, just as we have shown you, thus far. Revelation chapter 1, verse 13 to 15, and chapter 2, verse 18. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. And unto the angel of the church in Thyatira write, These things saith the Son of God, who hath his eyes like unto a flame of fire, and his feet are like fine brass. The text describes Jesus Christ as having his feet looking like fine brass, burned in a furnace. Fine brass is dark brown, and when it's burned in a furnace, it is very dark. Only black people have skin color that looks like that of brass burned in a furnace, which is a very deep dark brown. Robert Eisler, in a classic 1931 study of Josephus' testimony, was able to reconstruct the unaltered testimony based on a newly discovered Old Russian translation, that preserved the original Greek text. According to Eisler's reconstruction, the oldest non-biblical description of Jesus read as follows. At that time also there appeared a certain man of magic power, if it be meet to call him a man, whose name is Jesus, whom certain Greeks call a son of a god, but his disciples call him the true prophet. He was a man of simple appearance, mature age, black-skinned, short growth, 3 cubits tall, hunchbacked, prognathous, with a long face, a long nose, eyebrows meeting above the nose, with scanty curly hair, but having a line in the middle of the head after the fashion of the Nazareans, with an undeveloped beard. The Roman Emperor, Justinian the Great, who ruled from 527 to 564 CE, which is basically 500 years after the time of Jesus, had engraved on a coin, the image of Christ with woolly kinky hair and black features. On the obverse side of the coin, there is an image of Justinian but with straight hair. The Cambridge Encyclopedia has this to say about that image on the coin. Whatever the fact, this coin, with the straight hair Justinian on the obverse side, places beyond doubt the belief that Jesus was a Negro, or simply a black-skinned person. Jesus was black just like all the Hebrews of the Bible. All the oldest known paintings of Jesus Christ depict him as a black man with woolly hair. He was never depicted white until the Renaissance period. Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 5 and 7. Also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures. And this was their appearance, they had the likeness of a man. And their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like the color of burnished brass. The prophet Ezekiel was shown a vision, in which he describes 4 living creatures standing before the throne of God. The creatures had the appearance of burnished brass. The Hebrew word for brass is chakalibanon, Strong's number 5474, it is defined as burnished copper, an alloy of copper, or gold, and silver having a brilliant luster, fine brass. The word fine in Hebrew is puru, Strong's number 4448, defined as to kindle, to be ignited, glow, literally, be refined, by implication, or, figuratively, to be inflamed, with anger, grief, lust, burn, fiery, be on fire, try. So basically, the 4 heavenly beings that Ezekiel saw in the vision, had the color of burnished copper, which is just an alloy of copper and silver. This means that the creatures looked very dark brown, just like the Negroes. Ezekiel chapter 40, verse 2 to 3. In the visions of God brought he me into the land of Israel, and set me upon a very high mountain, by which was as the frame of a city on the south. And he brought me thither, and, behold, there was a man, whose appearance was like the appearance of brass, with a line of flax in his hand, and a measuring reed, and he stood in the gate. This is the second time Ezekiel is shown a vision in which heavenly beings are seen as being in appearance like unto brass. On 2 occasions now, angels are described as having appearance of brass. We all know that only people of color have skin that looks like burnt brass. Daniel chapter 10, verse 5-6. Then I lifted up mine eyes, and looked, and behold a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz, his body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. Daniel had a similar vision like the one that was shown to Ezekiel. In the vision, Daniel saw a heavenly being whose body looked like beryl, whereas his arms and legs had the appearance of polished brass. Only people of color can be described as such. Revelation chapter 4, verse 2-3. And immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone, and there was a rainbow round about the throne, in sight like unto an emerald. The Apostle John saw a vision of God, and described his appearance as looking like a jasper and a sardine stone. Thus far, it is clear that God and the angels are described in such a way that only black people bear a strong resemblance to them. Whenever God or the angels appeared to the prophets in human form, they appeared as black men because Adam was created in the image of God. Many people try to allegorize the visions that God showed to the prophets Ezekiel, Daniel, and John. These servants of God were describing what they saw and heard, to the best of their ability. Part of the description was noting that the Israelites and heavenly beings had appearance like burnt brass. Hence, making it very clear that the Hebrews are black people. It is very hard to deny the color of the children of Israel as shown all throughout the Bible, but there will still be those that play semantics with the colors in order to deny the obvious. The prophets used similes, which indicates a comparison, and not an allegory. As we have seen, there are several direct references to black skin in both the Old and New Testaments. These verses imply, beyond any reasonable doubt, the fact that the Hebrews had dark skin. However, it is very important to note that there is no verse in the Bible that says that the Hebrews had white or light skin. The Bible definitely emphasizes that leprosy turns a person white as snow. If these people were already white or light-skinned, the emphasis wouldn't be needed. Throughout the Bible, white skin tends to be only mentioned in association with leprosy, and in one instance as a curse on an entire lineage of Elisha's servant Gehazi. 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 27. The leprosy therefore of Naaman shall cleave unto thee, and unto thy seed forever. And he went out from his presence a leper as white as snow. When you read the whole chapter 5 of 2 Kings, you will find out that Naaman was a leper since birth, meaning he was white, more like an albino in today's world. Naaman went to the prophet Elisha to be healed of his leprosy, and was instructed to bath himself 7 times in the Jordan River for his flesh to be restored to its original color. Eventually, Naaman did what he was told to do, and was healed. As we get down to verse 27, Gehazi, Elisha's servant, and all of his descendants are cursed by Elisha to be white as snow, for taking gifts from Naaman under false pretense. The text says that Gehazi went away from Elisha, after being cursed, a leper as white as snow. This means that Gehazi, being an Israelite, was a black man and did not have white skin, but his skin turned white because of the curse of leprosy. The text also says this would be the condition of Gehazi and his offsprings forever. Meaning all the descendants of Gehazi would be white from generation to generation until the end of the world, or at least to the last descendant of Gehazi. Numbers chapter 12, verse 10. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and, behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow, and Aaron looked upon Miriam, and, behold, she was leprous. God cursed Miriam with leprosy for going against Moses' leadership, because of the Ethiopian woman which he married. According to the passage, Miriam's skin turned as white as snow. There was no way such an occurrence could have happened, if she had white skin already. The only logical conclusion remaining, is that Miriam was a person of color, whose skin turned white like snow as a result of the curse of leprosy, pronounced on her by the prophet Moses. Exodus chapter 4, verse 4 and 6-7. And the Lord said unto Moses, Put forth thine hand, and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand, and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand, and the Lord said furthermore unto him, Put now thine hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, Put thine hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom, and, behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. God performed a miracle on the hand of Moses by making it leprous, as white as snow. The text makes a difference between before the miracle was wrought and during the time it became leprous as white as snow. So, Moses' hand got leprosy and then it went back to its original color, making it very clear that Moses was a person of color. There are several scholars around the world, who strongly believe that some of the references to leprosy in the Bible, refer to vitiligo or albinism.